Hello friends and welcome to my booktube channel. My name is Alex and today I am making one of my favorite types of videos to make for you guys, and that is an anticipated releases video. We are coming up here on spring. It is the end of March, and even though it doesn't feel like it outside where I live, we're almost to springtime, and that means it is time for another video. My last anticipated releases video, if you missed it, was for January to March of 2023. I will link that in whichever corner. If you are interested in those first 3 months of the year, what books came out that I was very excited for. But today we will be talking about just April and May. I was going to include June as well, but just in April and May I had so many books. I tried to narrow down the list, but there's so many books that sound really, really good coming out in those 2 months. So we are just gonna do those. We'll do springtime releases, and then I will save June for more of a summary releases video later on. But those will be coming because June also has great books, and I just didn't want to make this video incredibly long. It's still going to be decently long, so grab yourself a snack or a drink. I am drinking a lavender chai tea latte, which is absolutely delicious. So grab yourself something, get cozy, and let's chat about the books coming out in the next 2 months. So I did a poll on my channel a couple of weeks ago asking you guys how you wanted these types of videos to be structured, and everybody voted that they wanted it separated just by order of release, not broken up by genres. So that's what we're doing. There'll kind of be a hodgepodge of genres in here. We have a lot of YA fantasy, adult fantasy, some contemporary fiction, some romance thrown in there, maybe some other things we'll see when we get there. But I am really excited to go through this list and let you know what's coming out. So starting at the beginning of April, there are a bunch of books coming out on April 4th. So we will be talking about April 4th for a little while here, but let's dive into these books. So first up, we have Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, who you guys know is one of my favorite authors. This is actually a book that I received an ARC from NetGalley, and I'm currently reading at the moment. I'm about halfway through it. It is a YA historical fantasy, the first of a duology, I believe, but don't quote me on that. It could be longer. The series is called Iris at the Front, and it is the story of kind of a World War I inspired fantasy world that is going through a war of the gods. And we follow a young woman named Iris Winnow, who is a reporter, and her brother has gone off to the front. She has no way to contact him, but to kind of quell her anxieties, she writes him letters and then sticks them underneath her door, where they magically vanish. And unbeknownst to her, they end up in the hands of her work rival Roman, who decides to start responding to these letters anonymously. The two kind of form a connection, but she is unaware of who she is writing to. She ends up becoming a war correspondent and ends up at the front lines of the war. So be warned, there are some really heavy topics in this. It is inspired by World War I, although it is a fantasy take on that. So we kind of have a You've Got Mail type of romance brewing in this story, which I am really enjoying, but obviously not gonna give you guys spoilers. That is the quick little synopsis. If that sounds interesting to you, I highly recommend, although I'm not completely done with the book yet. Next is Silver in the Bone by Alexandra Bracken. This is one that I have pre-ordered and am very, very excited to read. It is a YA Arthurian legend inspired fantasy. Our main character, Tamsin, is a crypt robber, essentially, it sounds like. And her brother are under some sort of curse, so she's doing everything that she can to protect her brother. And rumors start floating around about a ring somehow tied to Arthurian legend, and Tamsin decides that she needs to get a hold of this ring because it is the only thing capable of saving her and her brother. But there are a lot of people who want to get their hands on this, so in the race to get to the ring first, Tamsin ends up having to team up with her rival and gets into some sticky and dangerous situations along the way. This one sounds super, super intriguing to me. Like I said, I pre-ordered this. I'm really excited to read it. Hopefully I can stick to my yearly reading goals and read this pretty soon after it arrives because it sounds really, really good. I really enjoy Arthurian legend, and although I didn't love Lore by Alexandra Bracken, I've heard a lot of people say who've read ARCs that they enjoyed this one so much more, so hopefully that will be me as well, and I hope that you guys enjoy it if you decide to pick it up. We are still on April 4th, but the next book is Blood Debts, and it is by Terry J. Benton Walker. This one is a contemporary YA fantasy set in New Orleans, following a pair of twin sisters who are heirs to a dethroned magical family. It involves a decades-old unsolved murder and intergenerational curses, as well as Black culture in New Orleans. It sounds very, very interesting. Obviously, lots of really unique magic going on there. So I'm very intrigued to check this one out, mostly for the cultural elements, because I don't know that I've read a ton of fantasy set in New Orleans, and I'm really intrigued by the concept. Next up on April 4th, we have a rom-com to talk about, and that is called, fittingly, Romantic Comedy by Curtis Sittenfeld. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. This one follows a comedy sketch writer on a show that sounds kind of like SNL, and she's basically all but given up on her own chances of love until a pop star named Noah Brewster is on her show, and the two strike up a bit of a connection. It sounds funny and cute. I'm not the hugest romance reader, but this concept sounds interesting to me, so if I hear good things about it, maybe I'll end up picking it up. Let me know down below if you are a romance reader, if this is one that's on your radar. And the last April 4th release that we have to talk about, oh my gosh, we're still only on April 4th, is one that is actually already available to read. It's out on Kindle, and it is part of Brandon Sanderson's secret projects. So some people already have the physical copy, but the wide mass market availability of the physical book is April 4th, and that is Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. This one I've heard the best things about. I've heard it in a lot of like cozy fantasy videos, which it just sounds like so much fun. It is part of his Cosmere universe, but it is a standalone. I've not read anything in the Cosmere at this point. I really would like to, but I haven't yet, and I've heard that it's okay to start here if you are new to Brandon Sanderson as well. We follow a young woman named Tress who lives in a very unique kind of island world. She lives where there are these spores in the air that if they touch water, do different magical things depending on what type of spore it is. So that's the like danger element, and she lives kind of in this safe zone, I think, on this island, but her best friend ends up in danger and she takes off on a high seas adventure to go and save him. It just sounds super adorable and fun, and I'm really excited to get my hands on it and read it. Next up on April 18th, we have A Hunger of Thorns by Lily Wilkinson. This is another contemporary YA fantasy, and we are following our main character, Maud, whose best friend has gone missing, and she is determined to find her. Her search for her friend leads her to a mysterious abandoned magical power plant that was built on the ruins of an old magical forest that people seem to have forgotten all about. So I'm very intrigued by that setting and what mysteries happen to be going on there. Very curious about this one. I'm not the biggest contemporary fantasy person, but this one just sparked my interest for some reason. I think probably because our main character is a girl who loves stories, and what reader isn't drawn in by that? This next one was a last minute addition to the list, and I am so glad that I discovered this because it sounds amazing. Like, I cannot wait to read this book. It comes out on April 21st, and it is called The Remarkable Retirement of Edna Fisher, written by E.M. Anderson. I don't completely know if this is supposed to be a YA or adult fantasy. I assume adult, but I really don't know that much about it. This is a fantasy novel about our 83-year-old protagonist, Edna Fisher, who is the chosen one, destined to save her people from an evil dragon-riding sorcerer. So armed with her knitting needles, Edna leaves her retirement home in the hopes of going and helping save the knights, one of which was her son who tragically died. She wants to save these young men from a fate just like her son. However, in the process, she starts to question whether the true evil is the sorcerer she's fighting or the knights she's trying to protect. You guys, that just sounds absolutely amazing. A fantasy story where the chosen one is an 83-year-old woman, like heck yes. This just sounds like the coziest, most adorable, charming, fun fantasy. I cannot wait to read it, and I will definitely be reporting back on this one because I have to read it. It sounds so, so, so good. Next up, we have the one, the only, Happy Place by Emily Henry coming out on April 25th. You guys, I had to add this to the list. The queen of romance, Emily Henry, has a new book coming out, and of course, I'm going to be reading it. This one has the potential to be my favorite. I really, really like the concept of this, and I've heard very good things about it. We are following a couple who has broken up but has not told their friend group that they've broken up, so they decide to pretend to still be together on their annual vacation with their friends so that they don't mess it up for everybody else, because this is last year that they are going to be able to go on vacation to this same place that they've been going for many, many years. But it turns out keeping this a secret from their friends might be a little bit more difficult than they had anticipated. And oh my gosh, this just sounds so good. Obviously, I believe we're going to be getting a second chance romance here, and I'm really intrigued by the friendship dynamic that's going to be going on. So really, really looking forward to diving into this one. I have also pre-ordered this book and can't wait to have it in my hands. Also, the cover's so pink and pretty. Love it. Also on April 25th, we have In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. This is a sci-fi novel from the author of The House in the Cerulean Sea, which is a really just charming, cozy book, and this one sounds very similar in tone. I believe it is a bit of a Pinocchio retelling, but with robots. So we follow a little found family of robots. There is one human named Victor Lawson, and they end up going on some sort of a quest to save one of their own. And it just sounds very charming, adorable. I'm really looking forward to jumping into this one as well, and hopefully it is just as cozy as I'm expecting it to be. Whew. Okay, friends, we've made it through April. That actually was a lot faster than I expected it to be with how many books are on this list. I am just kind of giving you a quick little taste of what they're about. Obviously not going into too deep of detail since I myself have not read these books yet, but without further ado, let's dive into the list of books that are coming out in May of 2023 that I'm really looking forward to. We have a similar theme here where a huge chunk of these books are all coming out on May 2nd. So we will be on May 2nd for a hot minute here. Starting with Dragonfall by L.R. Lamb. So this is an adult fantasy novel where dragons were once betrayed by humans and are now kind of revered as gods. We follow a young thief who steals a magical artifact capable of bringing back a dragon who was foretold to have revenge for his kind. So disguised as a human, he has one goal, and that is to gain her trust in order to bond with her and then kill her. Sounds really intriguing. I am a big fan of dragons, so this one might be one that I end up picking up. Also on May 2nd, we have Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, which is yet another adult fantasy novel about dragons. So if anyone has read both of these, let me know which one you prefer, because I'm not sure if I'll have time to get to both of them this year, but I definitely want to pick one because I love dragons. So in this adult fantasy romance, we follow Violet, who is the kind of sickly daughter of the commanding officer at the Dragon Riding Academy, who is forced by her mother to join hundreds of candidates to become a dragon rider. However, because of her kind of ill state, she is very unlikely to succeed, and the options at this school are either graduate or die. So many students are willing to kill one another in order to better their own chances, and she is quite the target with who her mother is. So this one also sounds really, really intriguing. Again, let me know if you've read both Fourth Wing and Dragonfall, which one you think is better, or just let me know which one you think sounds better if you've not read them. Moving away from the dragons, we have a rom-com, and that is Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. Also a May 2nd release. This one is a companion novel to When in Rome, which I've not yet read. It sounds very good, but this one sounds more intriguing to me. This is a friends to lovers romance featuring the local flower shop owner and a tattooed bad boy who agrees to tutor her in becoming more flirty and fun after she's told that she's boring on a date. And of course, a romance blooms between them, and I'm really looking forward to this. It just sounds very charming, very sweet. I'm here for the friends to lovers. It's my favorite romance trope, so very much looking forward to this one and definitely planning to pick it up. Also, an adorable pink cover. Also on May 2nd is a sequel. This is The Stolen Throne by Abigail Owen, which is the second book that follows The Liar's Crown, which is one that I discussed in my underrated YA fantasy video. So if you've not seen that, I definitely recommend checking it out to hear more about why I love The Liar's Crown and think that more people should read it if you like the YA fantasy genre. In this series, we are following the Spare Princess, the second twin sister, who is basically raised and there to stand in for her sister, to help protect and guard her and keep her safe. And when she is standing in for her during her coronation, she is stolen away. And we follow all of the things that ensue from there. There are multiple different countries and groups that are at political odds with their kingdom. Lots of intrigue there. I really enjoy the romance in this story, and I'm very much looking forward to the second book in the series. And the last one coming out on May 2nd is The Isles of the Gods by Amy Kaufman. This is one that I have an arc for and am really looking forward to read on NetGalley. I have not started it yet though. This is a young adult historical fantasy set in the 1920s, and we follow a young female sailor whose ship is commandeered by a spoiled prince, and she is forced to take him to the Isles of the Gods to perform some sort of ritual, and in the process, they get into lots of different sticky situations, including some long asleep gods possibly waking up. On May 9th, we have Crown of Ivy and Glass by Claire Legrand. This is an adult fantasy debut from a YA fantasy author, and we are following our main character, Gemma, who is the only one in her family who does not have magic. In fact, magic actually makes her really sick, so she's constantly poisoned and ill from magic being used around her. She is also extremely lonely, being the only one in her family who is like this, and her family kind of all has their own responsibilities, kind of leave her to her own devices. She ends up befriending a boy from a disgraced family, and they strike up a bargain that she will help him navigate high society if he will help her slay a demon. I believe this is the author of Furyborn, and this is her first foray into the adult fantasy genre. Next up on May 16th is another sequel that I am so excited about, and that is Painted Devils by Margaret Owen. This is the sequel to Little Thieves, which is a Goose Girl retelling from the perspective of the anti-heroine. We follow the wicked maid who has stolen the place of her mistress, and this one is just so fun and different. I love the voice in it, and I am really looking forward to the second one. If you can see right behind me is my special edition from Illumicrate of the first book, and I am very much hoping to get my hands on their special edition of Painted Devils. Also on May 16th, we have The True Love Experiment by Christina Lauren, which is another companion novel to The Soulmate Equation, which is a rom-com that I have read and really enjoyed, so I'm very much looking forward to this spin-off. It sounds hilarious, and I cannot wait to read it. So we are following our main character, Izzy, who is a romance novelist who realizes one day that she's never actually been in love. Enter documentary filmmaker and single dad Connor Prince, who has been cornered into creating a new reality TV show and is way out of his element. So the pair team up to start this new reality show all about Fizzy's own romance story, and of course, I assume that the two themselves will end up falling in love, and it just sounds super fun. I am very excited about this concept, and again, I loved The Soulmate Equation, so I'm really excited to dive into this one as well. Next up, on May 16th, we have The Never Heir by Courtney Millicam. This is a historical fantasy retelling of Peter Pan about the boy who broke the curse on the Lost Boys and brought back real-life consequences with him to the real world. When he meets a girl who is convinced that her sister was abducted by mermaids, he ends up needing to go back to Neverland and fight his old demons once more. This one sounds really, really interesting. I really enjoy the Peter Pan story, and this one sounds like a really fun take on a retelling. So very much looking forward to getting into this one. Also on May 16th, we have Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. This is a contemporary fiction story about a young white author named June who witnesses the tragic death of one of her peers and makes the decision to steal this woman's manuscript and publish it herself under a pseudonym. Posing as an Asian American author named Juniper Song, June enters this web of lies about her own identity, about who wrote this story, and ends up taking credit for this other author's work, and we'll have to discover just how far she will go to keep her own secret. R.F. Kuang is a very, very popular author. I have Babel. I have not yet read it, but I'm very much wanting to, and this one sounds very, very intriguing, and I've just heard the best things about Kuang's writing, so I have high hopes that this one will be very striking with lots of really deep cutting questions and issues raised, but also sounds very, very good. Also on May 16th is Court of the Undying Seasons by A.M. Strickland. Now, this YA fantasy caught my eye because it is compared to Sarah J. Maas meets A Deadly Education. Those are some big shoes to fill, but okay, you have me intrigued. If you're making claims like that, I'm listening. So in this story, our main character, Finn, is a human who ends up at a vampire school, and she is intent on learning their secrets in order to get some revenge. However, while she is at the school, she uncovers a string of unsolved murders and takes it upon herself to solve them before she becomes the next target. So I'm very intrigued by the vampire school scenario. It claims to turn some vampire tropes on their head, so I'm curious to pick this one up and see if it lives up to the little blurb. On May 23rd, we have Of Light and Shadow by Tanaz Bathena. I am really sorry if that is pronounced incorrectly. This one is a standalone young adult fantasy romance, so that's fun. And it is set in a world inspired by the Badlands of 17th century India. This story follows a bandit and a prince who have to navigate political tension as well as a forbidden romance. So very intriguing. I'm really interested in the setting of this one, and the fact that it is set already as a standalone is nice because it's low commitment. And the last book on my list to chat with you guys about today, at the very end of May, on May 30th, we have Ink, Blood, Sister Scribe by Emma Tors. Now, this one's blurb draws comparisons to Ninth House, so another high order to fill, but you have me intrigued. I love Ninth House, so I'm very interested in this one. It is an adult urban fantasy novel about two estranged half-sisters whose family is charged with guarding a collection of ancient magical books. And who doesn't love a magical library trope? Yes, please sign me up. After the death of their father, they have to come together to take over protecting this library, and they start to uncover some secrets that their family has been keeping from them, and may even discover that there are other collections like their families out there. This one I have really high hopes for, and that makes me a little bit nervous because I don't know if it'll live up, but the magical library setting, the kind of dark academia-esque vibes, I'm really intrigued, and I really hope it's a wonderful book. So that is all. Those are the books that I am really, really excited about in April and May of this year. Let me know if you have read any of these or which ones you are excited about. I would love to chat with you guys. If there are any that you are really anticipating that I missed on this list, go ahead and comment those. I'm very, very curious to hear what upcoming releases you're looking forward to. And of course, watch out for that summer video where I will share the June releases and on from there as well. But thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and I will chat with you guys in the next one. Bye, friends.